the way that Hung and I met is a really great story. We get asked about it from time to time, and so we thought that we would share it because there's actually a really good lesson in it. So for those of you who don't know, Hung and I met because I had left my job. I was burnt out and I was really not happy about it, and I felt really propelled to find another job. And so I went about my typical thing. I updated my resume and I started applying on jobs because that's just what we do, right? And wouldn't you know, across the interview table, I found myself being interviewed by Hung for this job in the organization that she was working in. And so, yeah, you were my interviewer.
And ultimately, she declined my offer, by the way.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful thing because I wasn't offering the flexibility that she was looking for at the time. But we really connected, and kind of the interview part was over, the formal part was over. But then we started talking and we started connecting on how really impossible it feels some days to continue to nurture our ambition, our career, and show up as a mom, as a partner, the way that we want to at home. I think our kids were pretty young at the time, like 2 or 3 or something like that. So it was a pretty challenging time for us as working parents, and we really connected on that. And we went home and we both like had this niggling idea, like I did anyway, in the back of my head. I'm like, this person's so cool and she has some really brilliant idea, and I pitched myself to
Yeah, it's true. So I had this idea of a business that you know, Gigify is kind of formed out of. The way that we were working was broken. We needed to do things differently. And so I shared that with him after the interview was done. I think that I had also been putting out there, like, I know I want to start this, but I really don't want to do it alone. I just don't. After the interview, and after we knew that we weren't going to be working together in that capacity, Hung invited me out for lunch and started sharing all of these great reasons why she would be a phenomenal person to work with on this project of mine that I'm wanting to get off the ground. And I was floored because it was exactly what I was asking for, to have somebody to actually do this with. And so we were not friends before we became business partners. We barely knew each other. We just knew that we had this shared purpose, this shared vision, and that we had very, very aligned values in how we work and how we project ourselves in this world and how we carry ourselves and interact with others. And so we created a partnership agreement and talked about all of the nitty-gritty and not so nice aspects of working together. We talked about it up front, proactively, about what would we do if we all of a sudden discovered that one of us is a terrible human, or we just really don't work well together. What would we do in that scenario? And we got it all laid out from the beginning. And then we became friends over the course of a few years of working together. So I think that one of the most incredible lessons from that is you never know when you meet somebody where it could take you. I never in a million years would have thought, showing up in that interview, that I was going to be meeting my future business partner, my future friend. Had no idea that this is what would come out of that happenstance meeting. I guess.
And I think the other lesson too is that when I talk to people about this idea of networking and making connection, everyone just like, you know, like there's an icky feeling that comes with it, right? The way I do it for me is like, I just follow the thread of, do I want to spend more time with this person? Do I want this conversation to last a little bit longer? And if it does, then I ask them for a walk or for lunch or for coffee and see where it goes. And if it fizzles out and there's nothing that comes of it, that's fine. But if there is that bit of a spark and you want to spend more time and get to know that person better, and just do that. Just let things fall where they do, and have the courage to make the ask. I think that's the other thing. I thought a lot about, I'm like, is this gonna be strange? I'm like pitching myself to this person I just met once. And I talked to my husband at the time. He's like, what's the worst that could happen?
It was
like,
wonderfully strange. It was wonderfully strange.
I stopped short of putting together a slide deck, but you know. But it's true, right? Like, and I think part of it is you never know what the other person's looking for, right? Like, I didn't know that that's what you were looking for. I wasn't sure if you're like, hey, back off, this is my idea, I don't want you to come anywhere near it. But it just happened that you were looking for somebody, right? And that's why it worked. Try to just follow the thread, of where things take you, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay.
That's right.
But you only need it to work once.
That's right. Approach it with openness and curiosity, and then that's it. So networking doesn't have to be this horrible, icky feeling of walking into a room full of people or going like, hey, hey, hey. You know, it doesn't have to feel that way. Networking is what we do every single day when we interact with people, when we connect with them, and we just explore it with an open mind and curiosity. So yeah, that's how we met, and that's how we ended up working together, and it's how we continue to meet some pretty incredible people on our journey through our work. So,
yeah, and I think the other thing I wanted to say is that we have been to networking event where it wasn't the right fit for us, and it wasn't the right way that we wanted to connect with people. Sometimes you don't know until you try, and we try, and now we know that event, that style of event isn't for us. It doesn't allow for this level of connection that we're looking for. It doesn't allow for more in-depth conversation, which is what we're about. And sometimes you just enter a room where the space is just not inclusive enough, and that is something that's really important and valuable to both of us. And so that's just not the right space for us to meet people. So it's also important to understand that if that space doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean the whole idea of networking and making connection is completely out the window. Right. You just need to either work to find the space that works for you, or in our case, I think we're talking about creating our own space to bring folks together in a way that is more authentic. And so
quality versus quantity.
Yeah. So anyway, we hope that's helpful. I would love to hear from you in terms of stories of how you met some of the people in your life that has been very influential for you.
And we're always interested in meeting interesting people, people with broad experiences. So if there is anyone that you think we should know, introduce us. We're always open to that.
Awesome. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.